Hello and welcome to episode number 14 of 11FS Spotlight. In this weekly show, we shine a spotlight on the best and the brightest in the tech and financial services industry to try and understand what it is that really gets them going, what it gets them growing, and really what they think the future of the industry really looks like. On today's show is brought to you by MyTech. They deliver digital identity verification trusted the world over, secure more than high valuable customers while reducing risk and costs with MyTech, a global leader and enterprise partner in identity verification technology. On today's show, I am delighted to be joined by Professor Sue Black, OBE, and Dr. Simon Schofield from TechUP. I was just saying a second ago, I feel distinctly underqualified to be talking to both of you guys, given the professorship and the doctorship there. So, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving into their views on redefining what finance for good is, improving fairness in financial services, and how open technology really is the future of financial services. So, Sue, Simon, thank you so much for coming back on the shows. Simon, thank you for coming on. How are you guys doing?
Great, thank you. Thanks very much for inviting us. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, doing well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
How was your Christmas? How was your New Year's? It's been a bit of a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, very strange, very quiet and relaxing, but a bit weird still, not being able to see many people, not being able to see my kids and my grandkids most of the time. So that's just a bit odd.
Yeah, the noise levels definitely are significant decibels further down when they're not around, isn't there? So me, on the other hand, with two little kids now homeschooling, let's see how this goes for the rest of this meeting and see if I can keep them out of the office or not. But how about yourself? How was your break over the Christmas period?
No, I think it was a good time, right? Like you, I take advantage and delve into old classic films with the children. So that's always a good exercise to do. What should we watch now? Classic Batman from 1989. They're all good. You just got to watch.
You've got to be careful with those 80s movies. There's a lot more profanity in there than I remember there was when I was a child. So, but I think my little girl's definitely learned a few new words she didn't know. But all right, guys, as always in this show, it's really made by you guys getting involved. So on the comments sidebar, either on YouTube or LinkedIn, drop in your comments and we'll weave them into the conversation as we go, and we'll pose them to Simon and Sue. For getting us kind of going, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction to TechUp Women? Tell us what its purpose is, why have you guys got involved, what is it there to do?
Sure. Well, so I guess it started off as an idea in my head. And it kind of came from my career in terms of being a computer scientist, and over the years chatting to lots of companies who I've done loads of stuff around women in tech. So I set up the UK's first online network for women in tech, BCS Women, back in 1998, so quite a long time ago now. So I've chatted to lots of companies over the years, and I quite often get asked the question, so what's the one thing that we could do to employ more women or more technical women into our company? And companies not quite knowing what to do about that. And then at the same time, throughout my career, meeting so many women with so much potential who wanted to work in tech or wanted to be more technical, but didn't quite know what to do to make that happen. And maybe were applying for jobs in tech companies, but not getting them and not really knowing why. And then I saw this funding come up from the Institute of Coding. So they were asking for proposals for kind of retraining people into tech careers. And I just thought, well, here's a great opportunity for me to try and connect A to B, give the opportunity for lots of women with potential. And I particularly care about women from underserved backgrounds. So, coming from a sort of disadvantaged, dysfunctional family background myself, and technology and education actually completely changing my life, really, and my family's life, bringing us out of poverty. So, a massive lover of tech and tech education. So giving an opportunity to women from underserved backgrounds to get into tech careers and to try and solve this problem. So we applied for the funding and got it, and created TechUp Women. And so that's a program which we ran, which was, we're still running, which is a 6-month program. And what I really wanted to do was to create a retraining program that would actually take those women into tech careers, right into tech careers, rather than it just being some kind of certification or something. So, properly training into real jobs. So we had 15 industry partners and 4 universities working together with us at Durham University. And one of the first things that we did was speak to the industry partners and ask them, well, which jobs do you want to recruit women into? And so the top 4 jobs there were software developer, agile project manager, data scientist, and business analyst. And what we did then was to create a program to take women who were educated to degree level, but in any subject, through a 6-month program, retraining them into one of those specific roles. And our first cohort all the way through the program finished last January. And I can't remember the exact figures, but I think about 70% have gone on to further education or have got a job as a result of the program. And we're particularly proud that we managed to get more than 50% women of colour onto our program. It was focused on the Midlands and the north of the UK. And we've won various awards, and well, it's just been an amazing journey for us being involved with it, as well as the women on the program. I think we're just so proud of what we've managed to do, and so excited at the potential of all the women that have been through the program.
That's amazing, and well, congratulations with the success of it as well. I mean, I know. I mean, for anybody watching this, anybody listening to this who doesn't know your background, I'd suggest they go and watch the breakfast show that we had you on before, because the reaction to that when you were on, Sue, was fantastic. You know, I think what's really great in this as well. I mean, your background. You're not just talking about this, you've been through this cycle. So the things that you can add to this in the way to improve the situation for other people, but also giving the platform for other people to kind of come through that process as well, it breeds huge amounts of credibility in the space, doesn't it? And it's great to see such a great reaction to it as well. I mean, let's bring you in, Simon, and then we'll kind of come back to the program in a little bit more. I've got 1,000 questions. I'm sure we won't have time for all of them. But Simon, tell us a little bit about your background and how you're supporting TechUP as well.
Sure. So look, I was a little bit of a geek as a child, and some might say I still am. So, I fell in love with technology and went on to do a PhD in computer science. My career has predominantly been within financial services, so tier 1 investment banks, where I've done a number of roles predominantly around either being a COO or delivering change programs. I suppose it's a little bit accidental how I bumped into Sue, but I've always believed that there should be, especially in financial services, a really diverse set of people working there. And when I look around, there was far from it. And I think, especially having had children of my own, and particularly a daughter, it really makes you think about what could I do to really help this situation. So by chance, I met Sue at a educational conference. I think what really stood out to me was I actually met some of the women and some of the alumni who'd gone through the course. And I think, Sue's very modest because it's not just a training course. I think, there's lots of other inspirational things that I think, candidates will take away if they go on TechUP Women. And what I was really amazed to see was sort of see the passion and the ambition that I think Sue and the rest of the team had managed to transfer to them. So, yeah, that's how I got involved.
Yeah, I mean, passion is often infectious, isn't it? In terms of, I mean, that's the type of pandemic we do want, isn't it? Rather than the one, and sadly, that we're sort of dealing with right now. But I mean, I guess sort of cutting to the hard question that I guess you guys have been sort of facing into is like, why are there not more women in tech? I mean, is it Sue? Is it a supply problem, or is it a industry problem that they don't really know how to fit people into organizations effectively, or is it somewhere in between? Because I guess you're addressing the supply problem, but you're talking to the industry to understand what they actually need in the first place, which is not many people do that. So why do you think we've got to this place where there is such an imbalance in the technology world?
Well, I think the hardest thing is it's not one problem. It's lots of different problems, so it's kind of multifaceted. And I think, so we're addressing some of the issues with what we're doing, but actually it's more of a kind of societal problem. We've still got, whether we like it or not, stereotypes in our head about what girls do, what boys do, what men and women do at work. I mean, I'm kind of excited about the way that everyone's now talking about diversity and inclusion a lot more. challenging unconscious bias and the stereotypes that we carry around in our heads. So I think, things are moving forward now, which I think is great. And I think that's really kind of fueled by the internet and us being able to see what's happening around the world in various different ways, and also particularly social media connecting people together. Things like the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter have helped us all to realise many of the issues that are around that don't necessarily affect ourselves, but we can see that they affect, thousands, millions of people around the world. And I think just that whole kind of gender stereotyping is part of that, really. It's part of our conscious or unconscious bias. And there's not one thing that we can do. I mean, what we need to do is to help everyone to realise that diversity is a strength, that things that, having been in the area for sort of 20 plus years now, the sort of things that people were saying to me 20 years ago, like setting up a group for women in tech was sexist, and I was creating a ghetto for women. Luckily, I don't get so many of those comments now, but there are lots of people that still believe, that it is sexist to have a group specifically focused on women, or a program specifically targeting women, or, so, I haven't really got an answer for you because there's so many issues around that. But I just think that things are speeding up in terms of getting better because of the things that I've mentioned about us all being able to see more of what's actually happening and what people's lives are like, and to be able to understand a bit more what life is like for people that aren't like us. So I think that's helping us to take steps in the right direction. But I think, it's not something that we can just sort out by doing one thing. There's lots of different things that we need to do.
I mean, it's interesting, I think, on as you say, with the almost scary level of transparency and every voice on the internet, other than Donald Trump at this stage, which is no bad thing, but the sort of real transparency that happens on the internet, people are a lot less willing to be so stupid as say something like they did to you before, which is like, but at the same time, suppressing people who think like that to be almost, subcells of things becomes a very sort of toxic setup, doesn't it? In terms of how these things, I do think the whole principle of this, as you say, is like you've got people who people can look up to. If people who have got people who they can aspire to be like, who look like them, then that is the momentum that we need in the industry to move towards real change, isn't it? And as you say, it isn't one thing, it's like it's all the things, isn't it? But it's funny that when you start saying about, from a sexism or from any angle, it's a societal thing, and it's for everything from comedy through to actually how people are acting, working in the workplace. So it's scary, isn't it? And you only have to evidence that by watching sort of Dave for 15 minutes, and the jokes that are on there are just completely out of tone with society today. It seems like industry and society are sort of catching up with really where we need, which is real sort of equality across the piece. But I mean, that success that you've had, I mean, that level of women coming through the program and success of them being able to go through the program and get into industry, that's got to be a sort of a tide change moment, I would have thought, because more people in industry, more people seeing people in industry, there's got to be some momentum around that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we really want to do is to scale up and take the program to lots more women, and particularly lots more people from underserved backgrounds, because I feel very privileged as a person now. I mean, I know what it's like to live in poverty. I know what it's like to have some disadvantage, but there are so many more communities of people that haven't had the privileges that I've had. And I think just even having some sort of taste of what it's like to be poor, basically, or have bias against you, helps you to empathize with other groups of people that have probably had even much worse time than I have. And I really feel that we're just kind of missing out as a society, as like a tech industry, if we don't have multiple viewpoints of people from very different backgrounds coming together to solve problems, and like I think one of the most exciting things about technology and working in tech is tech can solve so many problems. It's just incredible, and connecting people through technology again can solve lots of problems. And so if we really want to get out there and solve those big problems in the world, we need to have people from all different sorts of backgrounds with all different sorts of experience coming together to solve those problems. And to me that seems obvious, but I guess it isn't obvious to everyone, because that's not traditionally how things have worked, and a lot of it's to do with sort of hierarchies of power and structures, sort of traditional power structures. But at the same time, I just think I feel like we can see the answers in front of us, or maybe I don't know if it's just me and a few other people, but I just see there's so much potential now to change things in the world, to be the way we want them to be, that I just feel like we want to get on with it. And I'm always like frustrated that things never move fast enough for me at all. So the sort of things that I'm doing now is what I wanted to do 20 years ago, but there was just no way to do it. But I am excited about the way the sort of rate of change is speeding up, and I think we're at a stage now where we're seeing what's happening around the world, for good and bad, because obviously, some of the stuff that's happened in politics in the UK and Europe and the US has not been great. But at the same time, we all get to see all of that now, whereas previously we wouldn't have seen, we just would have seen the end result rather than anything else to do with the fine detail. And so I feel that now everyone's able to see all of that kind of stuff, and then I feel like we're kind of going through a phase now where we see all of that stuff, and then at some point things are going to start kicking in and happening to help sort out lots of the issues that we've got now.
Fingers crossed. Why? You say that. I'm with you. That impatience, I think that keeps you driving to try and make those changes, doesn't it? But yeah. Why to the tech industry? Resources finite and actually quite scarce as well. So, why has this not been a sort of an industry-led thing? And why do you think the industry has sort of been quite slow to sort of making these types of changes? From a corporates and large companies perspective, because tech skills are like gigantically in short supply. So, Simon, why do you think the industry's been so slow to sort of start creating talent within the industry?
So I think Sue's touched upon it right. The positive is I think the topic is well understood and well known. I think what I've seen across corporates and predominantly in financial services is everybody likes to talk about it, but unfortunately, not too many organizations actually walk the talk. So I think we're at that stage where there is lots of passionate individuals and there is some heads of business that really believe in this thing. But because, to Sue's point, this isn't easy to do, right? And it takes a very long time to change this because it's a problem in society. It's going to take many decades before this thing will normalize itself. So I think the problem is seeing more and more people who want to walk the talk. That would be, my observation. But look, there is plenty of good things going on. This is the positive. There are initiatives like TechUP Women, lots of other initiatives that are addressing the problem at various other stages of the life cycle. And I think this is all positive. And I think, the more positive actions we see, hopefully that's a positive cycle, and we'll eventually see that really most people are going to end up walking the talk and not just talking it.
I also think that the companies now that kind of really take this on board and really think hard about diversity and inclusion in all sorts of ways, in terms of not just their company as a whole, but they're at board level getting expertise in, and also people who are willing to take a bit of a risk and do things that aren't kind of always tried and tested. I think the companies that start behaving like that now are going to be the winners in 5 years, 10 years time. And the companies that are being very sort of risk averse are the ones that, probably won't be around.
Yeah, it is interesting. Particularly in financial services, we've seen, I think we're from a diversity agenda perspective. I think I agree with you, Simon. I think people have almost treated it like a marketing element rather than something realistically that they were doing something about. Because sadly, and in any sort of problem, the first part is kind of admitting that there is a problem in the first place. And actually, increasingly we have seen more organizations come out and go, we're not great at this, but we are trying now, and we're going to commit to doing these things and and that's great, isn't it? Because you're starting to kind of open a dialogue of actually, we know we need to improve in these things, but please help us, please work with us. Which, I mean, I would have thought, Sue, that from a recruitment perspective is a really good thing as well, because that sort of openness and transparency, particularly if they're really taking an active role in changing the dynamic of senior leadership and management at any level, or diversity at any point at any level, then it requires momentum to make change happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's good, but at the same time, it's not enough. And it kind of feels like a lot of the time talking to companies about issues around gender and diversity and kind of improving their workforce. All companies are interested in this now, but actually, the amount of companies that want to put any money behind anything, or actually want to maybe put together a program themselves to create new pathways in to companies is just so far it's not that many. Well, if they are out there, they're not talking to us.
Yeah.
So we've been talking to a few companies about getting involved with the next run through of TechUP Women, and so we've got several companies that we're talking to about working with us to train women into careers in their companies, but lots of companies, I think, I kind of think it's sort of the right thing to do, but they're doing tick box stuff rather than actually changing what they do, thinking about the culture within the organization, thinking about creating pathways in for women. And lots of companies are still, when you have private conversations with people, they're still saying, yeah, but where are the women? They're not there. Like, we can't employ people that we can't find. But they're not thinking creatively at all about, well, how do we create a pathway? There's so many people, there's so many women out there with potential. Creating pathways in, everyone's not going to have the qualifications or the expertise that you want because they haven't had any of those opportunities all the way through. Whereas there are so many people out there with potential that could be doing all different sorts of roles in technology if the pathways were created. And so, we've created this pathway, but we need lots of organizations to be doing that. And I think until companies really take it on board properly and put their kind of money where their mouth is, then we're not going to see that much change happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, that is a difficult thing for an industry who is used to thinking about solutions to problems, and I mean that in the way that people are looking for the person with all of the skills right now to fix that problem that they have, rather than in the way that we have seen technology companies as a more broad category make some of these. It's the equivalent of a sporting team creating the youth system and the training academy in terms of, and actually if you make that investment to do those things, you find people who are much more culturally aligned to your organization. So I think there's almost a drug we have to get off of this as an industry, which is solving your immediate problem rather than solving it sustainably, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I suppose the other approach, which is never really happened in sort of recruiting, is see the skill set of the person and fit a role around them. As you say, David, we're like, I need this perfect person that meets all these criteria, and all of a sudden, there is only one or two candidates in existence because you've just gone to the minutiae of skill sets. And I think sometimes financial services are guilty of that, and a little bit more, I think, as Sue said, look, let's be more flexible, let's see people's strengths, let's see people's passions, let's think a bit more about alternative pathways. And then I think, that's a much healthier culture.
Yeah,
and also think about the barriers that might have been put in their way, because just thinking about, I was talking to someone recently about any sort of barriers or things that happened in my life which meant that I didn't end up in a certain place or did. And I was talking about when I was at school, I was persuaded by the teachers to do home economics and basically cooking and not chemistry. And at the time I just thought, well, they know better than me because they're the teacher. But of course, looking back, I can see that maybe they didn't know better than me. And, I failed home economics. I didn't pass it. And it meant that I didn't have an O level in science. And so, there's kind of barriers all the way through, I think, which most of the time we don't see, because half the time, I'm only realizing that now 50 years later or whatever, I didn't realize at the time. And so I think we also have to take those kind of things into account, that the people that come along, so for women will have had more barriers to get to a certain place, probably if it's particularly in a sort of stereotypical men's job. They will have had more barriers put in their way in various ways that they might not even realize. And then, there's kind of the intersectionality. So for women of color, they're going to have, even more barriers. And we have to think about, well, what can we do about that as a company? Those people won't have had the same kind of smooth pathways necessarily into being able to apply for this job role. So what can we do as a company to think about things that we can put into place? So, exactly kind of the academy kind of idea that you're talking about, but also taking those barriers more into account and not thinking that it takes the same amount of effort for everyone to get to the same place to be able to apply for those jobs. It takes probably twice as much or 4 times as much effort for some people, depending on, where they've started off.
And I guess, I don't want to, I'm trying as hard as I can not to talk about COVID too much this year, despite it being like, but I guess in this period of time and over the last, since March last year, it has had COVID and everything that's happened with the pandemic has had a sort of a disproportionate effect, hasn't it, from either from a minorities perspective or from a wealth perspective. Has this created further division, do you think, in terms of the opportunities around having more diverse workforce? Or actually, has this opened up potentially some opportunities as well? Because, arguably, I think no organization, if there's any organization on the planet right now who isn't saying, fit work around life, they're getting it very wrong and probably losing a lot of their people very quickly. But in a world where that's happening, then are people just a little bit more realistic about, like I say, I'm surprised my kids haven't walked in yet, it's the first meeting that they haven't all day, so are people just getting a little bit more accepting of making sure we fit the realities of our careers around the work? And does that offer greater opportunities, do you think, in that world?
I think it's really, really helped, and it's been interesting in that, like, working in tech, we've been doing online Zoom or Teams calls for some time, and it's been a reasonably normal part of our working day, I think. But I think for lots of people not working in technology, it's all new, and I think lots of organizations must have really changed the way that they see how they run their business. And they've realized that they can save lots of money by not having to have big offices in central London. And not everyone needs to be in the office 9 to 5 for a company to be successful. I've never understood that from way before I was even in technology. I've never ever understood why that's important. Why isn't it important that you get the job done? Why isn't that the most important thing? So that's I think that's a positive, really. And also, like you're saying, I think it's been good to, again, help everyone, kind of like bring everyone down to the same kind of level in terms of, we all might have kids running in at any point, or something going wrong. Or it just reminds me, actually, I just got a video yesterday. So before Christmas, I did my last public kind of talk, was at a sort of gender and academia conference run out of Moscow. And normally when you're going in to give a talk at a conference online, like you're kind of in the waiting room, I guess, on Zoom or whatever for a couple of minutes, and then they put you live. Well, that didn't happen with this conference. They put me straight live. And what happened was, as I went live streaming to the internet, there I was with a moustache and a beard and lipstick, virtual filter on my face, because we'd had our Christmas party the day before. And I'd left the settings on for me to have a moustache and a beard and bright red lipstick. So I was like streaming live to the internet with a conference full of people I didn't know. with a moustache and a beard, but managed to sort it out reasonably quickly because I knew where the settings were to change it. But I think, to me, that sort of thing, I was a bit traumatized at the time, but actually looking back, it's good that those things are happening, right? Because it kind of brings us all down to the same level, and we can all, I don't know, it just kind of levels the playing field a bit, I think.
It does normalize the thing. I mean, first off, that was hilarious. Like, if there was a recording of that, I'm going to go and find it later on.
I sent you the clip. I got it yesterday. Yeah.
But just because I want to see the look of horror on your face when you realize it, just that second in your eyes. But there is something to that, isn't there? Everybody's just a normal person. Like, everybody's just at home. I said this. I did something for the Singapore FinTech Festival, and I saw inside Mark Carney's house. It was amazing. Like, he's a normal guy. He's got a house like everybody else. Like, and it's just sort of almost bringing everybody. It is bringing everybody together, having that sort of uniformity of we're sort of all in this together. And I hope a lot of that does continue. But yeah. I mean, I feel like the diversity thing for me, I think, is often sort of just it's marked in the obvious ways. It's marked in like there's lots of men in work, but actually there are non-obvious ways that this plays out, isn't there, as well? I mean, Sue, I know we've talked in the past about the knock-on effects from predominantly men working in artificial intelligence, and that the algorithmic impact that then has. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I've got a PhD student, Sarah, who started a while ago and looking at bias in AI. And so we were looking at GPT-2, which I can't remember what the technical term for it is, but it's kind of like a massive computer brain for anyone that's not in tech. And we were hoping to have a look at it. So you can interact with it, and if you give it some kind of text, it will kind of continue in the same vein. So if you say, for example, people are, then it'll just come up with responses to that. So we thought, well, we'll interact with it, and how will we try and find some kind of bias in here, and we thought it would be hard, and unfortunately we just started interacting with it. So I think Sarah typed in people are, men are, women are, and just something as simple as that straight away. The responses for women, I think something like 1 or 2 in 10 had rape in them already, and it wasn't given anything else at all. And there was lots of violence in there as well. And so, it's just amazing in that the tools that we've got around, which are incredible in themselves. The fact that they've managed to create something that can do that, a sort of technology platform that can do that, and it can kind of write whole books, I think, in the style of an author if you give it some text by a particular author. So it's just incredible technology, but at the same time just ridiculous amounts of bias in there right from the very beginning, which is quite depressing.
Yeah, and that is scary, isn't it? Because as algorithms are indiscriminate in terms of their application, aren't they? In terms of, and if we built those problems into the algorithms in the first place, it will deploy them indiscriminately, which is quite terrifying, isn't it? Particularly if it's being applied against loan applications or various different types of things, because you almost never see the problem in that. It's only at the very end of the outcome, isn't it? Which is an issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, Simon,
it's affecting potentially millions of people. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it does as well, and that's the impact, isn't it? I mean, Simon, from your perspective, I mean, what more can we do? I mean, you've worked in big corporate organizations. Do you think there's more to be done around education, or do you think there's more to be done around? Is it a kind of a bottom-up movement, or is it a top-down? Because I think increasingly we're seeing pressure from both sides. People want to work in an environment that reflects them, but equally businesses have problems that they have to solve, which are real shortage of tech talent. So, I mean, it feels, again, to your point, Sue, this seems like a no-brainer to solve this problem.
Yeah, I suppose the problem is it's very complicated. It'll take many decades to work through, and there's no silver bullet. So I think the answer to your question is attacking it from multiple angles, all the way from early years education, probably the time children are 3 and 4, right? As Sue says, biases occur at such an early age. Encouraging children to take STEAM subjects, because as we've all said here, and we all recognise, the future's here very rapidly. Technology is going to be part and parcel. We all need a society that skill set. So we should be actively promoting and encouraging it as children, go through their education and decide what, further education to take, or what, alternative pathways they take, whether that's, through on-the-job experience. It doesn't really matter, but we should be encouraging people to pick those skill sets up. Obviously, we've talked about how companies recruit, and that's a process that obviously is non-optimal, and probably needs to be, I think the word that comes to my mind, more thoughtful, right, to accommodate alternative pathways. But I think even more importantly is once new joiners join a company, how thoughtful are we in terms of their career, right, in terms of their life events? So, it's no surprise, women give birth to children. That's a biological fact. But how do companies support that? How do companies make sure that women don't lose their trajectory? And I think, if we can get a lot of those things right, then 2-3 decades down the line, we won't ever talk about this problem. But it's a big challenge. We've got to address those issues, and we've got to keep on doing the right things and walking the talk. And I think it will correct itself given enough time.
Yeah, again, it's people not losing that element of urgency, and the disappointment, as you say, Sue, of it not moving quicker. So congratulations, guys, with the effort that you're putting in. Congratulations with the success and everything that's coming through. I mean, where can people that are watching this get involved or support everything that you guys are doing with TechUP?
Sure. So look, I think there's a number of things that people can get involved with. So I think either reach out to myself or Sue. We're talking to many different people, many different companies, and I think anything that's going to support those pathways, both in terms of finding people who would benefit from going on a course like TechUP Women, and also what they could do afterwards. So plenty of great opportunities. I think if you want to get hold of me, I'd probably hang out on LinkedIn. And Sue, was best to grab you?
Well, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, email.
A social queen.
Anywhere on the internet. But of course, there's TechUP Women, at TechUP Women on Twitter, techupwomen.org. The website has got lots of information about what we've done and some of our videos. I highly recommend watching some of the videos with the women speaking for themselves about how TechUP Women's changed their lives and the sort of things that they've been able to go on and do. We've won several awards, national and local awards, for the work that we've done, and some of the women that have been on the programme have won awards themselves in their own right for the sort of stuff they're doing with tech, which is just incredible. So it's kind of 100 women to watch that have been on the programme so far, and hopefully we can scale that up and create thousands more TechUP women.
Fantastic. Well done. All right, guys. Well, Fred, we better wrap up and move on. I'm definitely pushing my luck without my kids busting in yet, so I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. And but thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for everybody for watching this today as well. If we had more time, I'm sure there would be thousands more things that we could sort of go into on this one, and a bunch of different directions I'm sure we could go, but we'll definitely, Simon, Sue, we'll have you both back very shortly if you're up for it. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. That's all we have for you this week, but don't miss our other live shows. So Newsroom, which goes out live on Tuesdays at 3:30 GMT, that's 10:30 ET. In Newsroom, we take a bit of a deep dive into the biggest news story every single week, and in fintech and financial services, there's always something interesting happening, isn't there? So have a great week, everybody. Have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.